Yeah, it's going to go to a photo here, but I'm fairly certain that Duke DeSacer has... Oh, wow, this top.
Broadcasting live from the Capitol OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning, day after a couple of great days of racing in Kentucky. Keeneland hosting the Breeders' Cup, and lots of fireworks and fun, and some favorites and some long shots, and it was really a fun couple of days of racing. Handle records were broken out there, so everybody was kind of clued in, tuned in. And speaking of clued in and tuned in, as normal after a big day like this, I reach out to our colleague Steve Byk, who was at the Breeders' Cup in the lead up in the week leading, doing the radio show out there, and I will tout him again as having done a great job and great opinions given out in the week leading up to the big action on Friday and Saturday via the radio show. But I thought we'd plug him in as usual to get that live look at the event. Steve, good morning.
Seth, good morning. I was waiting for boots on the ground.
I almost
boots on the ground, baby.
I came this close to saying it, but I thought, I don't know. Well, before we get into specifics, and we'll go through some specifics, but give us just a little bit of an overview on the 2 days. I always just like to get a feel. It seemed like the crowd was great. As I say, the handle records were broken. The weather turned out, in like the week out forecast, it was a little dicey, but the weather turned out to be okay. Although I'll say, I wasn't watching the NBC broadcast, but I was watching the simulcast coming in from Keeneland / Breeders' Cup, and they commented yesterday a lot on the wind. So just set up what the 2 days were like out there.
Well, from that standpoint, I mean, we did manage to dodge all the bullets. Everybody, yet another big weekend in racing where people spend 2 weeks leading up worried, oh, it's going to rain. Shut up. Stop already. It's just idiotic. And Friday was a summer day, essentially. And then yesterday, there was a storm coming from the west, but it tracked up towards Cincinnati and it cleared fine. But it was windy. And as it happens, by the end of the afternoon, as we got toward the distaff, the turf, and the classic, the wind had died down. Through the middle part of the day, there was a serious headwind, and then, of course, a tailwind when they turned for home. And in that scenario, front runners are slightly hampered, and closers are generally thought of as benefiting. In terms of the racetrack, both the turf and the main track, it feels like the racetrack was fair. I mean, there were too many horses that came from off the pace, both on turf and on the dirt, to worry about any kind of bias. The horses that won on the front end, they deserved to win on the front end. And, from that standpoint, it was a very fair day, 2 days, and I didn't hear anybody grousing about those kinds of things, the conditions, and the track. I will say this: the track. One thing we did learn: the track was heavy, and the track you had to be fit. And I'm sure when we talk about Cave Rock, I was with Baffert yesterday for that first race with that fabulous Arabian Night that he debuted for Amr Zidane, and there were some very interesting comments. You needed to bring a fit horse here, and that was evident. So from that standpoint, everything was great. Keeneland does a fabulous job. I know some people are more satisfied with than others, but everything that I dealt with, leading up, and then yesterday, I spent actually a good portion of the day with Lee Heinzeidler, looking forward to Casa Creed and the Turf Sprint. And I was with Lee and his son Jeffrey. We really had a nice day. I thought it was another fine addition, and obviously Keeneland is going to be part of the rotation long term.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Baffert horse yesterday because it was obviously the undercard, but that horse one of the highlights of the weekend. And there was a little buzz, and maybe it was mentioned on your show that Baffert might be thinking of that one as his best 2-year-old, despite having Cave Rock in the barn.
Well, he told me on that. So we're going to talk about this for a second. Baffert said to me he thinks right now anyway that's his second best. That's his second best 2-year-old behind Cave Rock. Cave Rock ran fine.
Yeah.
Don't think for a minute that Cave Rock didn't run well on Friday. He got beat on the square, but go look at the same kinds of splits. You know what happened to Life is Good yesterday in the Classic. A very similar thing happened to Cave Rock, who was being basically pressured throughout, and then when Forte came to call on him, he was vulnerable. As it happens, Life is Good was vulnerable too, and when Flightline came calling, he didn't have an answer, and in fact, Life is Good ends up getting passed by 3 other horses. So Cave Rock ran fine, high 90s buyer, I think a 97 buyer for him. He's fine, but this Arabian Night, this is a very, very nice horse. He got a 97 yesterday himself with that 7 furlong debut. He ran as fast virtually as the fillies in the 7 furlong, the filly and mare sprint. For God's sakes, he's a 2-year-old. Very impressive.
Yeah.
But Baffert, since we went into this direction, Baffert did say to me that both Cave Rock and National Treasure, he was surprised when they came back after the race. He said they both were blowing. He said he thought he brought them there fit, and he said he said they needed to be fitter. And another thing regarding Friday and Keeneland in general, I hope it's not lost on people that the winner of the Alcibiades, Wonder Wheel, and the winner of the Breeders' Futurity, Forte, they won the lead-up preps at Keeneland. I would remember that next time we come back to Keeneland. Whoever's going to perform well in those races, you've got to give them extra points. And we'll talk about Wonder Wheel and Tyler Gaffleone's unbelievable ride. I mean, it wasn't that Wonder Wheel won that was so shocking. It was the way she won. That was what was impressive. And there was a lot of that went on throughout the weekend. There were some just brilliant rides. I don't think, Seth, in the final analysis, you go through the 14 races, there might be some decisions, here and there where somebody might have gone inside instead of outside, that they might have regretted. But I didn't hear too many people, bemoaning and wringing their hands over, bad rides. So the good rides stood out, and I didn't sense that anybody got victimized. From that standpoint, it was a terrific 2 days. No,
I'll agree. Normally after a day like that, there is some buzz about, this was a bad move, that was a bad move. We weren't seeing too much of that, any of that really yesterday. And before, again, we get to specifics, I want to touch on one other thing. I am happily a participant in the At the Races betting companion. You've been doing it, keying into the Breeders' Cup for a few years now, putting it together related to the radio show and bringing in a few different people to look at different races. I had the Juvenile Turf Sprint, which was tough. I didn't do much there, but I also had the Juvenile Fillies and did wind up with the nice exacta there. So I was happy with my results. But overall, over the 2 days, it was a nice result for folks who picked up the betting companion. The long shot lad was great. Joe Bianca also very clever. Rick Hammerly had a good opinion. Dick Powell went through some turf races. So a nice job once again putting together the betting companion.
I appreciate it. Basically $100 wager concepts, and of course there were a couple of scratches, so the dollar amount varied. But if you played all 14 races, you brought back 2,600. Kev Humphreys, the long shot lad, the Irish kid that we befriended, the people on Derby Trail on my website. We got friendly with him, 15 years ago. He's with the Bank of Ireland in Singapore. Kev is a brilliant handicapper and punter, and he fleshes out, clever horses. Sometimes he relies on a favorite, but then feathers in prices. He gave out that mile trifecta for over 1,300. Joe Bianca, who worked for us at the barbecue, who's now like number 3 at Thoroughbred Daily News. Joe gave out the turf try for 700. I mean, it was a bonanza. In fact, the information I thought, Seth, that came, you mentioned Dick. Dick had Victoria Road as a key component going back to the juvenile turf. We had Mike Welch on the show.
His call was fabulous.
Well, for him to tell everybody that Blue Stripe, ignore the odds, don't worry about the obvious players, that she was coming into this brilliantly. He gets beat as agonizing, for a win bet, but forget the win bet. Being confident in Blue Stripe was the key, obviously. I mean, all you had to do was key her around the 3 major players, Clairiere, Malathat, and Ness, and maybe search results, and you had a huge score. That was a phenomenal call by Mike. Sid Fernando on the show. Sid talked about Cheryl Spite. How about Cheryl Spite? What you got from Cheryl Spite as well in the turf. I mean, in the mile at box second. On and on. I mean, I was really
Kelly Riley with Tuesday.
Well, there's a bunch. It's funny. That was her best bet. Tuesday she was one of my best bets. James Scully was all over Tuesday. I mean, there were a lot of us that were hot to trot on Tuesday. I thought that Nick Luck too. Nick Luck was terrific with early on. Was who am I thinking of? Was it? Wasn't it was there was that Meditate on Friday. I mean, Nick said she'll win. I mean, he said I'll absolutely expect she'll win, and she was dynamite and dominant. It was terrific. We had people. I thought the information that came out was spectacular. I'll tell you who else. Tom Law, who everybody knows, of course, from Saratoga. Tom gave out a bunch of winners and good information. So you have to weave straw into gold, and sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you don't get lucky. I'll give you a horse that I was as high yesterday going into the day on Malabath as any bet on the card, not as a win candidate. I only wanted her to be third, frankly. I didn't think she could win. So I bet her underneath, and I bet her in a reverse tri-key, with Modern Games and the other obvious players in that mile. And Malabath comes running late. She couldn't get out of the gate. She was thrashing around when they opened the gate. Tyler Gaffalione was patient with her, moved her up from last. She gets beat a jump or two to be third for a huge score. She was 50-1. That makes the difference on a day like yesterday. You have to, you just have to get lucky in a couple of different spots. It was a typical Breeders' Cup. You talked about prices. I mean, Caravel.
Yes.
Was Caravel impossible to figure? No, not at all. She wasn't impossible. I mean, but for her to be 43-1, that was a little nutty. But at the same time, did you expect that she was going to wire that field? No, and you can't. You could wonder if Golden Pal is going to get out of the gate. That's always been the problem for Golden Pal, and that was the thing going in that everybody said. If Golden Pal, if he doesn't break, he's vulnerable. Well, that's exactly what happened. He didn't break, and he was vulnerable. I'm not exactly sure why IRAD chose to start to rate him once he started to make the move and he caught up to the field. You go on with it. Don't at that point try to think you're going to rate on the lead. Get him where you expect him to be, and so that whole turf sprint, you get a different result in there. Should Golden Pal get up and engage Caravel? There's no way to know who from the back. I mean, I suppose Creative Force. Frankly, you might have ended up having a situation where another Godolphin winner might have taken that race coming from off the pace. And that Emirati Hannah, she ran well too. So that's what this is. I mean, that's why we love this. It's big fields. It's it's mysterious, and you got to try to figure out a scenario and hope it unfolds.
And I will reiterate Mike Welch, because I had him on a week ago, last Sunday, and we went over workouts, and he mentioned Blue Stripe and continued to mention it all week long, including on your show.
How about that?
And I just and that was one of the hits I had with the bankroll yesterday. It hit that late pick 4, but with Flightline, it didn't pay anything. But had Blue Stripe gotten up and a $50 mutual in the mix, that would have been a much, much nicer ticket. And it was like an inch. Oh, that was tough, but it was a great call by Mike Welch. All right, let's jump in and take a look at some of the action, and we will start with the highlight. Everybody was waiting for it. I could hear it through the screen. Everybody clearly down at Keeneland was waiting for it and was happy as they came down the stretch. You can give us a little feel for what that was like as well. But we'll watch it. We'll watch him coming out of the gate. It played out the way folks thought, with Life is Good going out, taking the lead. Flightline didn't go up necessarily and engage, but was right up there next to a pretty fast pace. Now, I will note, when the fractions come up, that
pretty fast.
No, that 6 furlongs, though, the 107 is wrong. The chart has it as a 109.
Everyone knew the 107 was, the 107 was because of the outrider going to attend Epicenter. That was obvious, but you didn't need that number to know how fast they were going.
Yeah, no question. And as I say, it's a 109.62 in the chart. And then Flightline goes up and engages for a couple of strides. Life is Good. It just floats on by. And at that point, you knew it was over. Olympiad gets up to wind up second. Taba third. Rich Strike fourth in there. I will note Epicenter was pulled up after the race. He diagnosed with a fracture, supposed to have surgery today. But again, it was what people were kind of waiting for. And the coronation happened in the Breeders' Cup yesterday for Flightline. Give us your thoughts on the race.
Well, and coronation's a good word for it. The one question coming in that everybody was asking, and using that Pacific Classic at Del Mar this summer as the template. The question was, can he do it against horses of this quality where he was going to be challenged? And anybody who, and I'm not saying that there were people that were just being naysayers and just trying to dump on him. It wasn't a case of that. A lot of thoughtful people, were saying he's going to have to, keep up for the first half of a race with a horse of Life is Good's quality. Well, he did that, and then some. And you could tell when they started to open up that that spread back to Hot Rod Charlie and Taba and the rest of the crowd. That was pretty stunning to me, and the scenario became pretty obvious. I mean, if Flightline puts him away at any point, he's going to win by the length of the stretch, and that's essentially what happened. I mean, the over/under that was quoted all week was 6.5 lengths. Well, he exceeded that. That was the bet. He wins by 8.25, coasting home. And I don't know how many of you listening are Twitter users, but there's a quote that Dave Grenick got from Irad Ortiz that I'm going to read. I felt him every step of the way, just tried to get away from him and couldn't. I know I'm going fast. And I said, let me look again down the backside, and he's there. I said, oh my God. Then he just goes by me like nothing. He's an unbelievable horse. This is from Irad Ortiz. And you could see that Flavien Prat was just sitting and just coasting along. And, the way in which Flightline, in basically 3 jumps, goes past, and immediately opens up, half a dozen lengths in a couple of jumps. as Life is Good starts to back up. If you haven't seen, I haven't put this up. I took a screenshot, but I haven't put it up. Flightline's final quarter, 25-2, 25.47. Life is Good's final quarter, 27.58. That's 12 lengths. 12 lengths between the two of them at the finish in the final quarter. That's how much he pulled away from Life is Good. Now, Olympiad had a very Derby-esque kind of a trip with lots of 24-second quarters. He just credit to Junior Alvarado, who got his first Breeders' Cup win on Cody's Wish, and had a very good, and Mott, of course, we'll talk about, had a very good Breeders' Cup. But Junior Alvarado rode a very good race on Olympiad to get second. Mike Smith and Caba. Mike Smith, if you haven't seen his discussion with Ali Bell from ITV, he told Ali Bell that this is a horse that, as far as he's concerned, does harken back to a Secretariat. I mean, Mike Smith paved over Zenyatta, like she was 40 miles of bad road. Just unbelievable. So this was everything you wanted it to be, and that's one of the satisfying things, Seth, about the event. I know that there's people out there that are dumping on the American turf horses because we got beat up pretty good by the Europeans. At the same time, we had some really outstanding performances by our bread and butter, the American dirt horse, and it's pretty rare that you would have a distaff and a classic like this within 2 hours of each other and both live up to the billing.
Yeah.
And they both did, and then some. I mean, you didn't necessarily have the three horses you were expecting, at the wire in the distaff, but this was exactly what I would guess, more than half of the public was kind of hoping for. To have a horse that people are compelled to create a dialogue about where he fits in the pantheon of really outstanding American thoroughbred horses. And so from that standpoint, this was a very satisfying result.
Yeah, and you tweeted out something to that effect, and you made a great point. This is good for racing when you get something like this and it generates that kind of historical discussion. Whether you're on one side of the equation or the other, it's a fun, worthy conversation. I just think elevates the game, and I agree with that. Put a little more context to it. The buyer figure was a 121, and you also tweeted out a nice chart, and I have it up here on my computer, comparing the classic buyers going back to the beginning of the Classic, and that 121 is right up there. It's the highest since the 124 by Ghost Zapper. So it's just been a phenomenal career so far. We're going to wait and see. They have talked all year long about coming back next year, but will that play out? But I'm also interested to see, and I will know for people who are unaware, they're selling a 2.5% interest in the horse tomorrow at Keeneland. So I'm going to be interested to see what that garners.
Oh, that's right. They were going to do that. I forgot about that. The micro shares concept. Well, of course, tonight the Night of Stars at Fasig with the Bloodstock, and then I'm staying for 3-4 days probably to continue to broadcast from Keeneland from the Bloodstock sale. We expect to have any number of connections that are staying in town. That should be a lot of fun, and we'll do plenty of recapping. But the Bloodstock sale in itself, starting tonight, that generates its own headlines. We'll wait and see. I could tell yesterday to John Sadler and Costa Aronis, that they really didn't want to. They wanted to enjoy this, and I don't blame them. And we should mention for Costa Aronis and his family, this is, they had Accelerate, so this is pretty heady, and we should include as part of the praise John Sadler's role in managing this horse's career. The people that are saying, oh, he only raced every 4 months. Yeah, that's right. He only raced at the beginning of his career, every few months, because when you have a horse this fast, there's lots of little things that go wrong, and that's part of the story of why he didn't debut until April of his 3-year-old year, And then basically Sadler had to back off of him after that, and we didn't see him again until the allowance race and then the Malibu. He was being very cautious because a horse like this, any morning that a horse like this goes out on the racetrack, the career could be over.
Yeah.
Because they're just too. This horse is basically too fast for his own good. And so the credit that John Sadler, and we should also fold in Juan Leyva, the longtime jockey and now assistant to John Sadler, who exercise rides, the job they did keeping this horse right, and the time between races. Don't think that the time between races is somehow a knock on him. It's actually a credit to them to keep this horse sound and right. They did an amazing job having this horse ready for each of these 6 assignments so far. Would it be nice if he had run, let's say, 12 times by now? Yeah, I suppose that'd be great. But each horse is an individual, and Sadler deserves credit. And you could see the relief in Sadler when he broke down a little bit yesterday evening. And I think it was just more relief that he got him here in one piece and at the peak of his potential. This is a horse who's going to be very difficult long term to put in historic context. To me, the Ghost Sapper comparison is the most apt in recent history. I know that John was bringing back comparisons to the 70s and Seattle Slew, and it's not an unfair comparison, but it isn't necessarily appropriate just because of the way the game has changed. But he stands alone, this horse, in his own right, as a truly great horse. Don't kid yourself. He didn't need another 5, 6, 8 starts to prove how good he is. This is the real deal.
Yeah, the way he laughed at that field yesterday with the 121 buyer. Historically, and that field yesterday was very salty. It was a really nice performance and a great way to put the cap on the air. So again, congratulations to, of course, John Sadler, and as you say, Hurons Racing, West Point, Flavian Prat on board. So who's been on board the whole career. So very nice effort.
Well, you've also got Jane Lyons, of course, Summer Wind Equine. Jane, who stayed in, who bred Flightline, David and Gordo, who stepped in, and it's funny. There's a whole bunch of 2-year-olds out there that cost 1.5, 1.7, 2.3. The horse, that Arabian Lion was what, 2.6, whatever he cost. This horse was a bargain at $1 million.
And should be added, was bought right up the street.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Saratoga sales grad, so can't let that go by either. All right, let's go back to work our way back. Breeders' Cup turf, and you've kind of alluded to it a couple of times already. Breeders' Cup turf, grass for the most part over the 2 days was playing into the hands of the Europeans, and very often it was Charles Appleby, and he's going to get it done here as we watch him come down the stretch. Number 5, Rebels Romance, comes out of a couple of Group 1 wins in Germany to get the win under Jamie Doyle. Stone Age under Ryan Moore runs second. Warlike Goddess gets third, the number 2. Nation's Pride was the 5-2 favorite. The number 7, Nation's Pride, winds up 5th in here. But again, the turf kind of put the exclamation point on the European domination on the turf this weekend.
Well, there were 2 stallions that stood out. Those that saw, I tweeted the full buyer figure for all the races, and Curlin with 3 winners yesterday. But Dubawi, the wonderful Dubai Millennium son that stands at Darley Europe, and he had 2 of these winners. And Rebels Romance, of the Euros. To me, Rebels Romance was the right one. I picked him second. I thought Warlike Goddess could win this, and she ran fine. Rebels Romance was the right one. I didn't get Nation's Pride at all. To me, and Nation's Pride was a comical favorite. I was shocked that, and in fact, we had plenty of people. Sometimes having a negative opinion is helpful too. You heard several people, including Andy Serling, who just said, "Why do people think Nation's Pride can come in here and win this?" I appreciated that perspective. So Rebels Romance, really good. Doyle, very confidently handling of the 3-year-olds at Stone Age. There were a lot of people that took advantage of Stone Age and that 12-1 price. Frankly, that was a nice number. And Mishriff, Mishriff was a very difficult horse to referendum because when he is at his best, when he was at his best, he would laugh at a field like this. But it was pretty clear that he's past his prime. But he ran okay. He ends up fourth, beating 3 lengths for everything. So Mishriff okay in here. There was really nobody else that did much running. Channel Maker, the clock has struck midnight for him. 8 years old. Time for him to maybe think. I mean, not that he hasn't been competitive during the year, but it's enough already. I think with Channel Maker at this level. So a good, people said it wasn't a great turf, but that was a nice performance by the way.
All right, the highlight on the weekend obviously was Flightline putting the exclamation on things, but the race that is going to really stick in people's minds, this was a lot of fun. We're going to watch him come down the stretch in the distaff. And again, we mentioned hats off again to Mike Welch for giving the tout to number 2 Blue Stripe at 24-1. Malathat is going to be the number 1 and making the move on the outside. I like Clairiere, and Clairiere just couldn't get up on the rail here in time, but runs a good third. Then it's a break back to Ness. Ness was the disappointment, but we're watching him come to a wire here, and as they say, this will go down in people's memories as one of the best distaff performances of all time. Malathat does get up by a nose here, and then a nose from Blue Stripe back to Clairiere, but what a fun race.
Unbelievable race, and the way in which those last, 300 yards, give or take, the way it kept, changing, as at a certain point, it looked like Nest was coming, and I mean, there was even a point where when Secret Oath hit the front, it was being ridden, but you thought, holy cow, look at this. Search results kind of gave away readily. I didn't really understand what Flavien Prat or Florent Giroux. I didn't like what he did with Society. Society was a filly. The only way she was going to win was to let her just wing on the front end. And instead, once she got to the front, Florent Giroux tried to then rate her on the lead. That's not the way you're going to be successful with Society. She needed to just let her roll. So that left us with the horses that were coming from the back half of the field, and Blue Stripe was fairly prominent throughout as they reached the turn, and you kept hearing you could hear Kurt Becker because the audio was being played. You kept hearing Blue Stripe's name, and while other horses are falling away, Blue Stripe is just going forward. And then here comes Malathat, here comes Clairiere scooting up the inside. And it sure looked at a certain point in deep stretch like Clairiere had the momentum. Then in the next breath, Malathat had the momentum. And then they all go shoulder to shoulder, and you got the 3 noses basically on the wire. When they hit the wire live, I thought Clairiere was actually the winner. Then when they did it slow motion immediately, I thought, oh my gosh, I think Blue Stripe may have gotten the nose down. And then finally, when they super slow mode, it was like, oh, Malathat. There were like 8 of us or 9 of us in the winner's circle watching the TV monitor. And so with each different playing, everybody's like, oh, it's Clairiere. No, it's Mouse. No, it's nobody originally. And then it became pretty clear that Malathat. The guys in the truck, they've got the TV monitors and are able to get a little better, faster look. And they started to train the camera on Malathat. Great job really a great job by Todd Pletcher to have her, and she's been retired. That news came out, which is not a surprise. Shadwell Whatever's going to be Shadwell going forward with Jake Hamden's daughter, it's not going to be the same Shadwell farm that we've known. But here's Malathat, and I don't see what's going to stop her. What's going to stop her from being a champion now? I think I hadn't really thought about that till now, but it does feel like she eclipses. I guess Nest will still win the 3-year-old filly championship, but Malathat gets the older filly or mare championship. Felt a little bit for Hector Berrios, the jock on Blue Stripe, and Marcelo Polanco. This would have been the biggest wins, obviously, of their career. Polanco was stoic. It's funny, Dave Grenig said to Hector Berrios, "Did you think you won?" And he shook his head. No, he said, "I knew." He knew that he got beat on the wire, which was interesting. But just a spectacular race. That's the kind of thing that it was a perfect. Actually, it was perfect because honestly, Seth, up till that point, the results had been good. The races had been good. The Cody's Wish Cyberknife battle down the stretch was exciting, but this really, it really got the crowd into a frenzy for the last hour and a half.
No, I was out here in the race book yesterday with a really full house, and it was insane down the stretch, and then I'm sure it's the same down there. Every replay, it ramped up again, and I'm with you. Under the wire, since I had Clairiere, I was looking at the two inside horses, and I didn't even pay attention to Malathat because I thought, well, we've got Malathat already. So I looked at him under the wire, and I thought, maybe it's Clairiere, maybe I got that one. And then Kurt Becker mentions, Malathat on the outside. I hear that, and I think, now I want to see the replay. And yeah, once you saw the replays, but a 107 for Malathat, and really a capper to a great career. 10 wins and 14 starts with the purse money yesterday. Gets up near $4 million in earnings. Todd Pletcher and John Velasquez. And again, really a fun race. We'll go back now to the Breeders' Cup Mile. We've hit on that a little bit already, but the Breeders' Cup Mile yesterday, we're going to take a look at, again, the stretch run, and it will be the 3-year-old Modern Games coming off a win in the Woodbine Mile, a second when returning over to Ascot last time in the Queen Elizabeth, and then rebounds with the win yesterday. Charles Appleby and William Buick, as again, the Europeans just dominated on the turf. That said, and again, hats off to Sid Fernando on your show for kind of touting Cheryl Spite as maybe a
Not
little
kind of.
Well, yeah,
Not
no,
kind of.
and a horse for a course kind of an angle. Let me put it that way, which was a good pickup going back to the Maker's Mark at 55-1, and then Kinross runs third. But yeah, Modern Game over Cheryl Spite, and again, if you played around with that Cheryl Spite a little bit for $1, you got about $90 on the exacta behind the 6-5 favorite. So this was another fun race, fun result. But again, the Europeans continued their dominance on the grass.
Well, you bring up the Keeneland surface, and the Keeneland surface is a sand-based course, and what that means is instead of a loam that it makes it easier for horses' hooves to stick. A sand-based course, there's more give on the top soil there, on the top layer of the grass. Not every turf horse likes that. The big difference, I describe this all the time on the radio, the big difference between horses and surface preference has to do with the way, for instance, on dirt, and most important on dirt, horses slide. When their hooves hit, they slide, and then the ankle turns over, right? What they call breaks over, and horses will, if their footing is not secure, if they don't like the way the ground feels under them, they will run tentatively. And so even a turf horse, so you say, well, it's a turf horse. How can he not run on the grass? Well, because if his hoof is doing something on that surface that gives him pause, because horses are flight animals, their biggest fear is falling down, because that's when a mountain lion or a cougar is going to pounce on them and kill them. So that's why they run differently and either all out or tentatively on different surfaces, because they're afraid of falling. That's why when they come down the hill at Kentucky Downs, some horses are like doing little mincy steps because they're running down a hill and they're insecure about their footing. That's all a horse cares about. Keeneland, with that horse, when you see a horse that has won there and has run well there, you can rely on them running well there again, assuming that the conditions and the competition is appropriate. Let's juxtapose another horse who's now 0 for 4 at Keeneland and has run 4 of his worst races of his career, Casa Creed. Casa Creed does not like that ground. Period. Louis Saez said he was trying. He said, but he was kind of slipping, and he said he was kind of shuddering back and forth. He said he just couldn't get going. So just as much as we look at wet tracks and fast tracks, when you see horses that have run at this particular joint, take extra credit for the ones that have run well. And that's what Sid talked about. Just look at the figure. His career best figure, even if you just use Buyers, which aren't necessarily the best measure of speed for turf horses. He got a 104 Buyer, career best, and he's going to come back here with his second best career figure in this race. So Sherrill Spite, unbelievable, 55-1, makes the exotic sing in here. Kinross ran very well coming out of Champions Day, and Ivar ran very well too. Any of those three could have been second, third, or fourth. And I told you about Malavath, who had to try to pass every horse and got beat 3/4 of a length for a huge score. I was absolutely, that was my biggest that was my biggest frustration on the day. 52-1 and beat 3/4 of a length for a nice score. Anyway, the mile is always one of my favorite races, and it didn't disappoint even yesterday.
104 Buyer for Modern Games, William Buick, Charles Appleby. All right, we'll turn now to the sprint. The winner here as they come down the stretch will be number 6, Elite Power. The 8-year-old CZ Rocket, number 8, runs second at 31-1. Jackie's Warrior, again, the can't get it done in the Breeders' Cup as the chalky favorite. Number 9 runs third, Maniwa fourth. Again, Jackie's Warrior being one of the disappointments on the weekend. You can see fading out of it a little bit here, but coming on the outside, it is Elite Power, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Irod Ortiz obviously having a nice weekend, but Bill Mott, this was part of his nice weekend too.
Very much, and Mott, who we'll talk again, we'll talk about with Cody's Wish, and of course Warlike Goddess too. So lots of placements for Bill. And
Olympia.
This was a horse.
Olympia, I think, was very happy with that
placement.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. This was an interesting. There were plenty of people that were calling attention to Elite Power that seemed to be coming into the right way, and to some degree, as a 4-year-old that hadn't really run. The Bosberg, nothing wrong with that effort, but he only broke his maiden in June, for God's sakes. So this was a horse that really came to hand nicely. One of the 3 Curlin winners, just amazing. Cody's Wish, Elite Power, and Malathat, all sons and daughters of Curlin. Amazing. Judmont, always happy to see Judmont. And it's kind of an interesting sidebar that I hadn't thought of until just now. But here was Shadwell with Malathat, and of course Jake Hamdan's passing earlier in the year, and Judmont, the passing of Prince Abdullah as well. So 2 organizations that will continue in kind of a new format. But Irad Ortiz, I got a wonderful picture of Irad Actually, I got a wonderful picture of him in the Philly and Mare sprint, winning for Chad and for Steve Lehman on Goodnight Olive. Nice job by Irad. He had a good. Irad had a very solid the cup, but Elite Power. Nice to have. Nice to have an emerging sprint. Jackie's Warrior. There were tons of questions about how confident people could be in him coming in here, and anybody that said he just did not look as powerful as he did last year, despite the series of nice performances and nice numbers. I think we also kind of wrote off the loss to Cody's Wish, but Nick Tammaro with me, really did drive that point home that if you watch that 4 go again, and even though Jackie's Warrior, got one of the better figures of his career, the way in which he gave it up was a little distressing, and those were legitimate concerns. So listen, he had a great career, 12 for 18, nothing wrong with that, and I think he may have hit $3 million in earnings. So a tremendous career. The Robesons, I'm sure, and the Asmussen camp, I'm sure a little disappointed, but he'll certainly had a fabulous career. There's no knocks on him. Nice job by Nick Tammaro too, by the way. For those that were listening Friday, Nick did reiterate in his final analysis that CZ Rocket had every chance. He thought to kind of snap back and get. At the age of 8, that he looked like he was ready to run another A race, and he really did. I mean, he got beat a length and change, but he was 31-1, and he's the one that really juiced up those numbers, the exotics. Yeah,
8-year-old, you got to like that. 100 buyer for Elite Power. The Philly and Mare Turf, In Italian looked to have the potential to maybe take them all the way around, and almost did. In Italian, the number 11 horse here, gets caught and passed by Tuesday. Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien running third. Lady Spikespeare, the favorite, Nashua runs fourth in here. Moira, who a lot of people liked, I was not in love with Moira. She winds up running fifth, but Tuesday getting it done again, running past late here. In Italian, who ran very well, just couldn't hold off the European in the Philly and Mare Turf.
Well, this is a case, and I bet Tuesday and keep things through her, and I thought she made the most sense. One of the things that was key to this was the fact that Toy was basically entered as not as a rabbit, but to at least keep In Italian honest and keep her company. And when that 46 1/2 mile went up, that was a sign that this was going to be a race that that somebody was open to coming and running down In Italian. I mean, she ran great. She ran absolutely great. I don't know what else you could have done, but the way Tuesday, you could see Ryan Moore had a lot of horse under him, and Daughter of Galileo, the Coolmore and the Valley Doyle team. They're another nice win for them. I don't think there's a lot to say. Lady Spitespear third in here, and that's that also Roger Atfield and Chuck Fipke. So Chuck gets two placements for two of his horses at a high level. He loves the game. He puts a lot into it, so I was happy for him. I didn't get Moira either. I don't know why there was such a love for her. And Nashua kind of got untracked late under Holly Doyle and kind of made a meek run. But no, this Tuesday was the right horse every which way you looked at it.
And a 105 buyer figure, and I'll toss out to tuck in your handicapping pocket for future. This was the third winner that came out of an also-ran performance in the Prix de l'Opera over the last 5 years. So that's turning out to be a nice little kind of a quote-unquote prep race for the Philly and Mare Turf. All right, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile again. one of the stories. Certainly social media was ablaze after this one. One of the stories of the weekend with Cody's Wish getting it done and the naming of the horse and everything related there certainly added to the good feel after the race. Number 7, Cody's Wish gets it done. Cyberknife, a nice little second in here. Slow down Andy third. I thought Gunite was very playable in this race. The number 5 Gunite runs fourth. But Cody's Wish, it's Junior Alvarado, it's Bill Mott, and again, it was the feel-good story probably of the weekend.
No doubt about it. And this was an exciting, until the distaff came along. This was a thrilling race. And the public got this right. Cody's Wish goes off a little over 2-1, and Cyberknife a little under 7-2. There's not a lot to say. I didn't think either one would have been my friend Al Gold certainly would have been happy to see Al win with Cyberknife. This was a very good effort by him, and I look forward to him as a 4-year-old. Got to give my man Rick Hammerly plenty of credit. Rick told everybody, slow down Andy with Doug O'Neill was absolutely, a playable entity in this race. And so if you listen to Hammer, slow down Andy 17-1 to juice the try and the super. Gunite I thought ran okay. Stretching out off 2 weeks rest. The disappointment, Pipeline. I kind of didn't get Pipeline. Everybody was kind of high on Pipe. Not everybody. He went off at 6-1 as the 4th choice, but he gave. In fact, I haven't heard a report. We do have to talk about the horses that bled on the weekend, and I haven't heard a report if Pipeline. He certainly stopped as if he was bleeding. I haven't seen a report on that.
106 buyer for Cody's Wish in the dirt mile. We'll turn now to the turf sprint. And, you mentioned it earlier. Caravel, who we've seen up at Saratoga the past few seasons, running very well up there in different hands over the career, but now in the barn of Brad Cox. Comes out of a win over the Keeneland turf course in the previous start in the Franklin and gets away at 42-1. But we're going to watch the entire race here because you mentioned it earlier. What was notable, number 8, Golden Pal, just gets off to a bad start, which changed the complexion of the race. But Caravel gets off to a very good start, takes the lead. Tyler Gaffleone doesn't look back. Emirati runs second, Creative Force third, Highland Princess fourth, and here Golden Pal as the 6-5 favorite runs 10th. So certainly one of the disappointments on the weekend. But with all the domination from the Europeans on the turf, it was kind of fun to see a Pennsylvania bred get it done on the grass on Saturday.
Well, and you talk about key races coming in. This is another horse that ran at Presque Isle, in the Presque Isle Masters. And you mentioned the Pennsylvania bred side of it. Liz Berryman was happy for her to get a breeder. She gets the breeder award in here. And you got to give Brad Cox a lot of credit. The wheels kind of came for her. She had gone sideways. That's not a knock on Graham Motion, but things really had gone quite wrong with Caravel last year, and Cox kind of rebuilt her. And she wasn't perfect this year by any means. She got beat in a couple different spots, including in that Presque Isle Masters. But this really is her wheelhouse. 7 for 11 coming in the 5.5 furlong style turf sprints. Turf sprints are built differently. The Jaipur and 5 furlongs, 5.5, 6, 7. This is really her thing. And here's another horse that had a win at Keeneland over the course, and people must have just kind of just scoffed at her. I just seen the race in a different way. I thought Wesley Ward had a real angle on this. I picked Campanelli and respected Golden Pal, and even thought the other Wesley, Arrest Me Red, had every right to run well, behind the speed. But listen, Golden Pal not getting out of the gate changed the entire complexion of the race. Good for Tyler Gaffleone to keep Caravel going. She certainly got confronted. I mean, Amoretti Anna was coming up, on the inside of her and had every reason to give it up and didn't. So great job. What are you going to say? And congratulations to those that, caught a 43-1 winner. That was probably about twice what Caravel should have been.
Yeah, no, the price. I mean, I'm looking down the PP. She was favored in what, 1, 2, 3, 5 of her last 8, and yesterday goes off at 42-1. And they started yesterday with the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. And I like Goodnight Olive. I had the horse right underneath in the mix, but it just seemed like as the week progressed, that one was getting a lot of buzz and subsequently goes off as the 9-5 favorite. Goodnight Olive, the number 8 horse. I did not know what to do with Echo Zulu, but this was a very good performance from Echo Zulu. And that one took some action from the betting public at 7-2. And Wicked Halo runs third. CC, last year's champion, runs fourth in here. But Goodnight Olive, relatively lightly raced, coming in with only 6 starts, but 5 wins for Chad Brown and company. Gets it done under Irad Ortiz, who, again, had a nice weekend himself.
Well, the Goodnight Olive and Obligatory, and even the other, Bill Mott had 2 in here, Obligatory and Frank's Rocket. It just felt that this race, there was too much speed for this not to give up to a off the pace run. And I mean, personally, I picked Goodnight Olive second. I put Frank's Rocket on top, trying to get a little bigger price. But really, on all my multis, Goodnight Olive and the 2 Bill Motts. Echo Zulu, you could tell the way she was coming in from a workout standpoint that she was going to run an A race. And great job by the Asmussen team. I saw Scott Blasi, heading to the racetrack. When you see a bullet work from the Asmussen camp, that's very unusual. For her at Keeneland to fire a 59-2 bullet, that said that she was sitting on a big race. She was not going to be killed, 7 furlongs. So she wasn't going to be killed by the outside draw, the open air outside box, where the air is fresh and clear, as Marty McGee says, and she was spectacular. I back-wheeled her. I was actually surprised she took as much money to get down to 7-2 as she did. But I was kind of happy with the way I bet this. Sometimes, you bet these things the wrong way. In this particular case, the one thing I knew was that Echo Zulu, had a real shot at a board hit. But Goodnight Olive and the other 2 closers, those were the 3 right ones. And, Chad has now won 2 of these, right? Wayville Avenue.
Right.
And in fact, didn't she win it? She won at Keeneland, too, I think.
I think you're right, yes. A 101 buyer for Goodnight Olive. So, again, that started the day. And we're getting to the end of the show, so why don't we'll take a look at maybe Forte and Wonder Wheel. And then just if you have comments on some of the other 2-year-old races, we can hit on those too. But let's go back to the juvenile first. And Cave Rock, as you said, Cave Rock ran great. Winds up second, but does run very, very well. Forte, though, I keep saying it. I was in here doing the afternoon show the day he broke his maiden back in May, and I said, this is going to be a nice horse. And right out of that, Todd Pletcher said, yeah, we're going to the Sanford. Disappointed a little bit in the Sanford, but followed it up with the win in the Hopeful and the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, as you had mentioned before. And Forte looking pretty good. Under Irad Ortiz gets it done. Forte, a 100 buyer figure. Cave Rock second, National Treasure third, Blazing Sevens fourth. But Forte, I think it's safe assumption, capped off an eclipse year with the win in the juvenile.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, 22-4, 47 flat, 111-3, and that softened Cave Rock up. There was no doubt. And when Forte came calling, you could see he was gonna get by, and that he did, and drew off. 5-1 was a nice price. I was not nuts about Forte coming into this, but again, I actually got worried about the way I had built my tickets when Wonder Wheel, when she won the juvenile an hour earlier, I said, this is going to be a case of, again, horse on the course, and that's what you got. You know, the two juvenile winners, you know, both having won at Keeneland, preparing, that says everything you need to know.
Let's go back to the juvenile fillies, and I was surprised at the price on Wonder Wheel. I mean, she came in with the win in the Alcibiades, and so to get away, you know, at a $15 mutual, I thought was pretty generous. Wonder Wheel's the number 5 here, and I will say, after the race, I looked up because I had Mark Cassidy on with me up at Saratoga before the spin away. He was very high on the horse, and it was funny to listen to the quote. He said, you know, you can't judge a horse really until they get 5 starts under them. The spin away is only going to be start number 3, so I got a few more starts before I really find out. Well, Friday was start number 5, so I think Mark Cassidy now has a pretty good feel on Wonder Wheel. 83 buyer, Leave No Trace, the upset winner of that spin away. Nice performance for Phil Serpy and company. Raging Sea runs 3rd, but again, you would have to think Wonder Wheel, put the capper on an Eclipse campaign.
That she did, and you know, Mark talked about her with us, you know, all summer long, and as her career was gearing up, and to be honest, I just didn't expect that she could win the way she won. Did she have the talent? Yes. I just, you watch what happened, the way they were running to her and getting to her in the Alcibiades, and there was just so much other speed. So for Gasleone to bring her from the back of the pack like he did, it's just amazing, and absolutely thrilled for our friends, the Greens, John Green and his father, you know, DJ Stable, Len Green, the Green Group. They're on with me very regularly. They put a lot of money. In fact, they put a ton in during the sale season this year, the yearling sale season, and thrilled for them. And of course, this is their second juvenile filly champion in 4 years. They had Jaywalk just a couple of years ago. Congratulations to Mark Cassidy and the whole team involved. Gasleone with just a brilliant ride.
Yeah,
that was his first Breeders' Cup win.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so he had a nice weekend then as well.
Yes,
and just as we wrap up here, I'll just mention Magic Mischief in the Juvenile Turf Sprint, an 89 buyer. Meditate gets an 89 in the Juvenile Phillies Turf. The Juvenile Turf Victoria Road. Any thoughts you want to toss in on those?
You know, not particularly. I mentioned to you, and I alluded to the incidents. There were at least 2 bleeding incidents that we're aware of. The one on Friday, Tyler's Tribe, the Iowa-based colt of Tim Martin's, bled out of both nostrils and bled badly, and had run on Lasix. This is what the Jockey Club wants to ruin horses, wants small people driven out of the game. Congratulations. Messier came back heat out of the nostril. So good job. This is wait till the Derby, or wait till some opportunity arises where a horse comes back with blood pouring down their chest, and a jockey spattered with blood. That'll be the end of the sport. But you go ahead. You push Lasix out of the game. Great idea. To me, it's an obscenity what they've done.
I did appreciate the subtly sarcastic tweet that the reply that Jay Priven put out here. Gee, wouldn't it be nice if we had a way, a low-cost way to? I appreciate that. Before we let you go, I do want to tell. I do want to tell people to go back. As I said, you did a great job all week, and looking forward to the recap coming up this week on the radio. But you did a great job in the lead-up. But I want to tell, go back to, I think it was Wednesday's show, because I think I was waiting to get on, and then I knew, no, I'm not going to get on. But Lenny Schulman, I very much appreciated the recap of you and Hammer and Lenny going out to dinner and trying to find Lenny's keys with the background music from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I had tears rolling down my face by the end of that segment. It
was so funny. I I don't even know if we did it justice. It was so ridiculous. Crazy.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah, as they say, I will tell people to go back and check the replay to that. Steve, appreciate the visit and the recap. Again, always great to get the insight from the boots on the ground, as it were, as you were live all week long at Keeneland the last couple of days. Really, we wait for it all year long, and this year's Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday lived up the billing all around. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate your comments, and looking forward, as I say, to a recap coming up this week on the radio show as well. So travel safe when you do head back home.
Thanks a lot, Seth. Thanks for everything, and we will talk to you Wednesday. Get some more postscript, and we'll be live at the Keeneland Bloodstock sale, the November sale, starting tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Should have a fun parade of connections that were involved in the Breeders' Cup. Hoping that Costa Aronis is going to hang around. I hope that he doesn't rush back to his vineyard, his full-time job. He's literally a grape farmer. That's his day job. But we'll have probably David and Gordo and who else. I have no idea. It should be a really kind of a different recap show tomorrow and Tuesday with just people at the sale. It should be great.
I was going to say, when you're live at places, it's always fun because you don't know who. I hear you. It's a radio, so you hear, "Hey, you come over here," and all of a sudden there's whoever, the huge industry personality sits down and talks. So I'm sure there'll be more of that coming up this week. Really appreciate it.
Not at all. Hope everybody cashed something, and just remember, if you didn't cash yesterday, you can hit the pick six at Aqueduct today. There's a $30,000 carryover. The money that you make today, it'll spend the exact same as the money you didn't make yesterday.
I like that thinking. And speaking of that, they are only minutes away. Well, they're less than an hour, but 45 minutes away or so, because they have an early post at Aqueduct today at 11:50. So keep that in mind. Steve, appreciate it. Steve Byk from Sirius and XM's At the Races, and of course co-hosts all summer long, loose on the lead as well. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio, but again, they're going to kick things off fairly shortly at Aqueduct, so I'll be back with OTB Live in less than an hour with some ideas leading through the afternoon. I have some Aqueduct and some Churchill thoughts. I'll probably pull up the PPs and look a little Saratoga harness, because I always like to do that on Sunday as well. So plenty of action still to come for this afternoon. We'll be back in just about an hour or so to talk about all of it, a little less than an hour. So we'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.